Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Geebz here, your old composer here at the Decomposer Lounge. And yes, this is a subject matter I've been waiting months to kind of do. I've been thinking about this. I wanted to try to be as raw and best mood I can be in for kind of a stream of conscious and kind of spill this weird little thing that I just posted about me deciding to leave Hollywood, knowing that my career would pretty much end as I saw it possibly going, coming here to Hawaii and somehow still being successful as a composer. And there's a there's a lot that goes into this, but for the sake of just story time, I'll kind of boil it down. This isn't clickbait and stuff, and this isn't like some kind of way to get you to hang out here and watch this video, as much as it is me sharing an experience that some people would say, well, there was a character flaw there that maybe perhaps you weren't as successful as you could have been, should have been, might have wanted to have been. And maybe there's stories in your lives that, well, of course mine is with music, but maybe you might be able to parallel this with something in your life. The short of it is, when I made the decision to come here to Hawaii around 2001-ish, was music related, but not so much as a composer. But when I came here, I met somebody, and she has two beautiful young girls that are now all grown up, and this is why I have 7 grandkids. And but I made a decision for a change of lifestyle. What was the most important thing to me? Music, as most of you know, if you don't, I'll do the 30-second dance, was something that is just in my family. As a third-generation composer, I was born listening to music being written. Within a few years, I was reading little music things and learning piano and guitar and playing violin and drums and bass and guitar and choir, and then rolling all the way through my teens, then becoming a sound engineer in the 80s, back in the Hollywood days, analog to digital crossover. Playing music for people on projects. Sometimes the guitar player would have a problem with something and I'd step in, play. They'd give me $50 and a Subway sandwich and get no credit. Or just all kinds of very unique things happened to me in my trajectory into the 90s, where I became more of a composer, taking all the skill set that I had and just started writing music just for people who said, well, we just need a bunch of background music to go for this kind of stuff. And it might be motivational stuff, it might be industrial. In the early 90s, big corporations needed music for industrial things. And I started writing, which I had no idea what they were called, but production packages, which would be, they would pay me X amount of dollars, I would write them X amount of tracks in a particular style, and then I reduce them down, give them different mixes to use, and they could just drop it, welcome to, Rocketdyne, and it's, people working and stuff, and the music's in the background, blah, blah, blah. That got a lot more of a shove through the 90s, where I had some opportunities to actually start writing music for, school shorts and films, and then short films, and then shorts or films for festivals. And then I had a couple of really fantastic opportunities come my way. There was a very famous B producer and studios, the Roger Corman. I was hired to do a video called Aladdin's Adventures of All Time. If you look it up, it ends up on my dad's credits, but I don't care whose credits it is. But I was hired by a wonderful young lady by the name of Gina Amador, who was the music supervisor, and she gave me an opportunity. And it was a B movie, and I didn't have the world's greatest equipment, and it was my one of my very first full feature film kind of approaches to do. But it was fun. It was had to do with orchestral type hybrid work and stuff. And as that happened, I had a couple of other really big opportunities that came along, which were writing music for commercials. That was a total accident how it happened, but it happened. One of the reasons why it happened is because this one production agency that kept on using this one guy, he went on to be Cher's, the very famous singer Cher, musical director. His name was Paul Merkovich. And Paul went there, and then they still needed work, and I started doing work for this production company, which was everything from commercials, like from Dirt Devil, to industrial videos, and running footage stuff and whatever it is that I can do, and some also private and productions as well. Paul, side note, as you might know, he has been the musical director for The Voice for the last, I don't know how many years, probably one of the most humble, coolest cats I ever met. Though we only really talked maybe for about 15 minutes one day at Strawman McGowan, which was the name of the production company. But one of the coolest cats I had ever met, and he was funny. I was like, "Hey man, I'm doing work for you." He goes, "Oh, don't worry, I got a full table. I've got all this happening here." Anyhow, that was a side story. And at the end of the '90s, what happened was I had moved into Studio City, right across the street from a place called Studio City Golf Course. I think it's called Weddington now. My brother, as some of you may know in some of the videos that I've mentioned, has been a teaching golf pro there ever since the 80s. So I've gone there many, many years before I moved across the street, literally across the street. Wake up, go outside the apartment door across the street, and I would be drinking coffee at that little coffee shop there. I wasn't much of a golfer, but loved to watch my brother work. Throughout all those years, I had met a lot of people who were in front of the camera and behind the camera. They from above the line, below the line, as they say in the industry. I've met great people there. At that point, I started thinking of the success of the work that I had done. You know, I really want to maybe lean into the big times. And I had, you know, I've had some people who heard my cassette tape back in the day. That's what it was. And I got some really great responses. One of the most memorable ones was a gentleman by the name of Arthur Hamilton, who actually wrote me a handwritten note and had said, you know, what he thought about my talents, and just incredibly uplifting. You know, you are definitely quality to go get your position here somewhere in Hollywood. You know, get in there. And I also had a couple of agents that said, God, you know, wow, you're more than capable, but you haven't done anything. We don't know where to start. I think I may have mentioned this in one of my other videos. So I was kind of a little bit of wind out of my sail there, but I was still doing work, you know, on this production, music production kind of level until I met this guy that to this day has been an integral part not only of my career, but also has become a good friend of mine. And his name is Brandon, and he gave me an opportunity to write for his music library, a series of music libraries actually in the journey with him. And I really enjoyed that work because I didn't feel the stress per se of being a film composer and having to watch scene and create and do this whole thing. I mean, maybe for another video I'll explain that on a personal level, you know, about the films that I've done and the kind of stress that goes along with it. With this production library work, I would get orders for, like, you know, tracks to sound like, make them this long, then cut them into 30s and 60s, give me reduced mixes, and then as the digital world progressed, you know, then export the stems and all this sort of stuff. And I felt really comfortable with that. Many different styles I had to write, many different styles, from classical hybrid to heavy metal to whatever. And I really liked it. But here's where the personal aspect of why I felt I couldn't really fit into the Hollywood kind of vibe was I organically and what's the word I'm looking for? I just couldn't fake networking, if that makes sense. If someone goes, oh man, that's so-and-so, man, you need to talk to them, you know, he's really big and stuff, you know, I go, well, what do I say to him? Meaning, like, do I go up and really, like, pretend that I really want to get to know him? Like, he's not getting hundreds of thousands of people rushing him, from actors to screenplay writers, and, you know, I would balk at that. I would like, well, I got nothing to say. What am I going to do? Ask him how his kids are? He knows what I'm after, and I don't want to be that guy. And that there lies what I believe probably was a major character challenge in me, and not having what it takes to be successful on a particular level of, like, you know, when you're driven and I'm going for it, and what's another no, and another no means maybe a door will open up down the way. I was never brought up in a world like that. A little reminiscent of that video that I did about when I got fired from Guitar Center, you know, that I just there's just something about I don't want to be dishonest and just say, hey, how you doing? So nice to meet you. Where in the back of my mind I'm going, man, I just hope this guy lets me give him a tape or something. And I just couldn't do it. And I didn't want to fake it. One of my brothers says, well, you know, one of my biggest problems is I always talked down about myself, and you know, people would say, hey man, you gotta listen to this guy's compositions and all this. And I go, oh, no, I'm just a surfer. I'm just doing this. Like I would throw out these emotional, you know, shields or something like that, and say, no, I'm just, you know, I just love surfing and stuff, you know, and maybe in a moment they would have given me the opportunity, you know, by saying, hey, why don't you give us something, and I may have shut that down by putting out that energy, and it's been something that I've had to deal with my whole life on so many different levels, not being confident in my own skin per se at that time. So much so that when I had decided to make the move, I said, look, I'm going to, you know, I told my family, and I'm slowly going to start breaking away from my studio in Studio City and dismantling it and so on and so forth, and I'm going to go to, you know, Hawaii. There was one gentleman who was probably one of the coolest cats that I ever met, very honest, and he's a funny guy. Also, you know, without a doubt, a close friend of my brother Ron's. My brother Ron has had so much positive impact on my life, just getting me through. You know, he was the one that was introducing me to a lot of people, because my brother was very successful golf pro. Well, he still is, over at Studio City or Weddington or whatever it's called. He knew all these guys. He was teaching, you know, Frank Mancuso Sr. and Jr. and Tommy Lee and Eddie Van Halen and all his, I mean, there's articles on him and all kinds of stuff. My brother really did kind of try to, you know, maneuver some things, but I always kind of self-sabotaged myself. And but there was this one guy, his name is Louis Melito, and he has a great story that in 10 seconds he started off. From what I can recall, I hope if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me, but he started off as a PA, and then by the end of his career, he was an EP, an executive producer of the original CSI series, and he worked his way up through it, and he's very driven and but I only knew Louis as this guy who shows up and plays golf. So he wasn't somebody that I wasn't an actor, I wasn't trying to get a job, I wasn't a DP, I wasn't anything. I was just Ron's brother. Hey, Geebz, what's going on? So, you know, a lot of the people that I met through my brother that were actors or executive producers and stuff like that, I never rolled up on them as any kind of artist of sorts to want to, you know, advance my career. I'd walk across the street in my Ugg boots, just my hair sticking up from surfing if I went surfing that morning, or if I didn't stay up all night because I was just working or doing whatever I was doing. And I'm just Ron's older brother, Geebz. You know, hey, what's going on? You want to golf? You know, a little 9-hole pitch and putt. You want to, hey, you know. So I had, I think, a different kind of communication with him. But this one guy, Louis, that for about 3 or 4 years, I would, you know, come into the course. He'd be hitting every morning, getting lessons from Ron. And eventually, he even gave me a couple days as an extra on CSI, just so I can get with some voucher thingies, so I can qualify for something. Big heart, great guy. He sat down next to me. He was done hitting his golf balls and sat down. He goes, hey man, I hear you're going to Hawaii. And I go, yeah, you know, and he looked at me and he gave me this look, just like kind of stone cold look, and he pretty much said, what the fuck are you gonna go, if you go there you won't be able to be, I've heard your music, I know you can do this is what you do, why are you going? You need to be here. And I said, Louis, I don't know, I just don't feel like I have the waiting power, or I'm just, you know, I get, you know, outwardly, hey, I'm a talking guy, I do my show here, right? People know me, but when it comes to talking about business, for some reason, I just collapse like a push puppet. You know, remember those push puppets? You know, you push the bottom, they go, Pfft. And so Louis talked to me for a couple minutes, and he kind of gave me like an older brother kind of vibe talk, you know, and he says, well, you know what you need to do, but I just think that you need to stay here. And I just went, yeah, thanks, man, I appreciate it, but I'm bugging out. And I did. Funny enough, though, about a 1.5 years later, he and his family came out. We had the best times ever. I showed him all kinds of wonderful things here on the North Shore and stuff, and we stay in touch occasionally now and then. But that really has stuck in me as like, is that the moment in my life where I should have taken that message and maybe stayed a little longer? But at that point, before I got on the plane for the last time, you know, to come back here and make this home, I had to stop and think, you know, what is stopping me from being a driven individual, What is stopping me from being as successful as I think I can, and or what I can do, or why? And then I realized that my passion and my heart was not in the right place to become the success, bigger word, bigger, bold italic, that I potentially could have been had I stayed in, Hollywood, Studio City, whatever, and gotten the opportunity to maybe get a series on TV, or maybe meet that person who needs to film and stuff. I think I was just a little late in the game emotionally to start like really saying, this is what I want to be. I want to be a successful composer, and I want to be this. And to me, that was lights, name and lights in the skies and show and parties and stuff. And right before I left, this one last guy who I really liked, his name is Jeff Baugh. I don't know if he's with us still or not. I think he is. And he was very well known in Los Angeles. He was probably more famous than most actors, at least in Los Angeles. He was the guy who gave the report from the helicopter, on traffic back in the days where that's where you got your traffic report. And I really enjoyed his company. Wonderful guy, great smile, huge heart. A lot of great people at Studio City, actually, I met there. But his dream, he sat down and he goes, oh, you're leaving, huh? I go, yeah, I'm out of here. His dream was to be a famous character voice, maybe like a Mel Blanc or something. But he had this opportunity with this radio station in the helicopter to do this, reporting. And he was like, oh, okay, I guess I have a radio voice. They like my voice. They like my way of doing it. And he made a complete wonderful life out of that. And he had explained to me that, well, sure, maybe it would have been really cool if he had the other opportunities to become more of a, and maybe he had after I left, this is 20 years ago, of a successful character voice actor, but he was really, really happy, and he felt blessed to be successful using his voice being the guy in the helicopter. And then I kind of sank back a little bit, and I went, I get that. So anyhow, I moved to Hawaii. Sharon and I get married after a while. Her kids multiply. We got 7 kids. I'm doing this really fast, but here's something that was very unique. When I got to Hawaii, I still kept my relationship with Brandon, even though technology wasn't quite anywhere near it is now. I had, a little laptop with a couple little things. Modules were fairly new at the time, native instruments and stuff. And I was still able to execute, or I would even fly back to Los Angeles and use my friend's studio sometimes to write music. But as technology grew, Brandon continued to hire me. And then I realized after a few years of still writing for Brandon, dozens of tracks turned into hundreds of tracks, turned into 1,000 tracks, to now I'm up to maybe, I don't know how many thousand tracks I've written for him, and well over 30, I think like 3,300 pieces of licensed music have been out in the world, being played on TV and stuff. And I'm making a paycheck still in Hawaii, though, sometimes some of the royalties were not worth the stamp it was mailed out on. You couldn't buy a donut with. And then sometimes I'd catch a check and go, what the fuck? Who landed on one of my tracks? And so my life continued on this path. I go, okay, all right, I'm beginning to feel good about what I do for a living as a composer. I'm able to write music in this genre, and it works for me. I'm enjoying it. Even though my capabilities are I can handle A, B, C, and D, this seems to be fitting the best for me, is to be this library composer. Well, just when I think that's what I'm settling into, a dear friend of mine, his name was K.O. Wolford, showed up in 2012, maybe, with a film that he had written, called The Haumana, which is here in Hawaii. It was very well known locally here, and it also did fairly well in the festivals. And he had me score the film. I was like, God, I'm all the way out here in Hawaii, and I still get an opportunity to be in the industry as a composer for film. And it was fun. It was a great time with him. It brought back a little of my anxiety working with a director, being told, that doesn't work, feeling, all the things you go through. And it was kind of like the universe saying, we're not quite done with you yet. We don't know what we're going to do with you, but, we still think the universe. I'm having a fake conversation. That's why I have puppets. A lot of voices in my head. So, no, I'm kidding. And So Ko, after the Haumana, also did 3 other, contributed into 3 other films and brought me along with him. So with him, I had worked on 4 films, and then tragically, unfortunately, a very dark period for myself even. One Thanksgiving, we got together, we had Thanksgiving, gave him a big hug, a noogie, hey, I'll see you Monday, we're talking about the next film to come. And the next day he passes of a powerful stroke. 49 years old, healthy, wonderful, great human being, just gone. And so that sent me into my own personal, tailspin and stuff. But I'm still writing music for Brandon. And somehow, my relationship with Brandon was built on friendship. And I think the difference between me maybe schmoozing somebody to try to get a film or something, organically with Brandon, I built a relationship with him just being 2 guys. We're kind of the same. He's kind of Guido from Jersey kind of guy. And if he watches this, I know he's going to laugh. He's probably going to say, this motherfucker. But, he's got a great fun attitude. We have the same kind of attitude with life and stuff, and we got along very well. And he's been a very good friend of mine. But, he's gotten ticked off on me a couple times if I blow it on some orders or something, or some mixes I put out and stuff. But, he's at that point, he's my boss. But then he'll call me in between it and we'll say, hey, Geebz, here's what's going on. Let me tell you this. Hey, scumbuddies. And he still hires me. And I just got through doing a bunch of Christmas music for him. And now I'm about to start another job tomorrow for 10 tracks that I have to deliver in about 15 days. And, and I know that Brandon could hire anybody else. There's a lot of great young composers out there that are better than me, with better, modules and stuff, and a lot more of a go-get-it attitude, and they're probably going to compose and arrange with a lot more aggression, and really want this, where I'm like, hey, Brandon, how you doing? I love it. Thank you so much for the work. I do my job, and that's it. And sometimes I feel that Brandon just goes, Geebz, he's my guy. Yeah, we're all getting older. Let's give him, between 20 and 50 tracks a year to do, which I'm blessed for. But at the end of the day, here I am now, and when as this title of the video, what it took a couple months for me to actually put this video out was to be pure and honest, and like I said earlier, that stream of consciousness coming from a very raw place for me, but one that I still go, gosh, I was successful. I am a successful composer. I am writing music for a living. I am paying my rent and all my bills and help raise the family and everything through my music. And whether it's $1, $5, or whatever the case is, that, I've realized, geez, I guess I am successful. For what that means is because I'm able to achieve these things. By no stretch of the imagination do I think I'm 100% out of the game. I'm only, at my age, who knows, maybe somebody will ring the bell and have me come work for them. And then even after Ko had passed, a few years went by, and just last year, a year and a half ago, I did a movie called, I can't remember because I have such a brain fart. Concussions from hockey and stuff. It's wreaking havoc on me now. I think it's The Last Temptation. No, The Last Conception. The Last Conception, not Temptation. The Last Conception. It's on my IMDb page, I don't know. And it was wonderful. But Brandon gave me that opportunity. Brandon goes, hey, listen, there's somebody that needs help, and can you do this? Can you work for us? And can we do this together? And I was like, yeah. And I did that film, and I had the best time ever. And so maybe there's a future for me with that. But for me, that's where I'm at right now. Now I just I eke by, I by no stretch of the imagination am I a rich composer. As a matter of fact, I'm always 6 months or a year away from going, oh shit, what am I going to do if this folds? I don't have an mass amount of money waiting for me at the end. Royalties can change just like that, and all of a sudden everything can drop just by the way the world is going, and intellectual property and the professional rights organizations, catching, surveys. And but I, in hindsight, sitting here and talking also to a friend of mine, Mark, I have learned to become extremely grateful for the success that I've had, just to say I've been able to do what I've been able to do, writing music. It may not be the world's greatest. I may not be the world's, I'm definitely not the world's anything composer, but good enough to do the job. Jingles and libraries and all the work that I've done. I just think that's what my success was. My success was being able to just at least manage what I could through life doing that. Not name in the sky and not getting awards or anything, but gosh, I've been able to do it. And you know, for right now, knock on wood, I'm still getting a little bit of work, but I also know it can change at any given time. And it just wasn't what I thought it might be my life. Let's say in the 90s, as I was going through, wow, I'm doing the Corman movie, oh, I'm doing commercials, hey, I'm doing this, I think I'm on this path. And then I realized that I have to become somebody that I'm not in a networking kind of way. And I just ran from it, and I hid, and my lack of confidence would show. I would get, I mean, there was times I would get nervous talking to some of these people. I mean, literally, you know, and I hadn't even asked them for anything yet, but just because I knew that they themselves could make a, you know, snap of a finger could change my life. I just didn't have it in me, which was kind of funny. But so here I am in Hawaii. Many years it took to learn to live and create within my skin and be happy with this is what I do. And you know, and like I said at the very beginning, I don't know if there's any kind of story from you folks that might ring the same way, where you thought you would be one thing, you started doing one thing, but you just kind of locked into something, and then you realize this is what I do. It may not have been the thing that I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life, but I was very happy doing it. And you know, so anyhow, no edits here, no jump edits, no images, just for some reason I'm able to just, it's funny, right? I can yap and do this all day long, and I can be organic and honest and truthful and transparent with you and show vulnerability and everything. But if it came to meeting somebody that I know could do something for me, I would go, no, I'm fine. Don't know what it is, but I have to say, now the new thing is that has put me over the moon is this channel. The 1 or 2 or 3 or 400 of you that may watch this video, because this is just a talk story video, very long when it turns out to be. Maybe there's something in my words that ring kind of like oh yeah, I went through something like this, or yeah, no, I can kind of identify with this. But I think for me, the bulb, the root of this really was built in outwardly, being this guy who's, hey, have fun, I surf, I write music, inwardly just not having the confidence to take that next level, to get into the real world, the big world, and the big mix, regardless of my capabilities and what I can do. I know there's a lot of people out there that can do great things that maybe have succumbed to the same kind of, you know, and I never had any kind of stopgap measure to get me over to the next side, except for people like Gina Amador, who really had confidence in me and said, no, you're going to do this, you can do this. Or Greg Strom and Doug McGowan, Strom and McGowan, back in the day. They had confidence in me. They pulled me through. Made a few mistakes there, but they had confidence with me, you know. And then, of course, Brandon, you know, and to this day, you know, even if he doesn't call me anymore because I blow it or I'm just getting too old or my music sounds like crap or whatever, Brandon, at least, I know, you know, we'll end up sitting down with a mason jar full of Jack on a rocking chair and talk about the old days. But, you know, anyhow, super ass long-winded video. And, you know, if you're still here, well, you know, sometimes I always say, hey, type in, I'm still here. But if you're still here, maybe you need to get a drink now. Anyhow, you guys take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day, evening, night, life. Love your friends, love your family, leave yourself open to being loved, and I'm going to come back at you and with some more music to listen together. All right, guys, take care. Aloha.